Back with breaking news and a Fox News alert. Local reports now saying the Austin serial bomber is dead after he detonated a bomb in his own car.
Joining us now, former Boston Police Department commissioner who captured the Boston Marathon bombers, Ed Davis, and former FBI agent who led the hunt to capture the Unabomber, Terry Turchie. Thank you both for your time for joining us this morning. Ed, I'm going to start with you. Just to recap the Boston Marathon brothers, the Tsarnaev brothers, one was killed in a shootout, one is captured and still in jail. After that, what did you have to go through, and what are the police in Texas having to go through right now?
Well, good morning, Jillian. Clearly, this is an important day in the investigation. Once they have the suspect either arrested or deceased, they can start to put together the case. They can go back and look at the motivations of the individual, and they're going to learn a lot about how he was able to construct these bombs, what materials and components were used, and how that can help us in the future. But mostly, they're looking at his motivations. Why did he do this?
Terry, over to you. As you searched for the Unabomber, we learned a lot about this man that I think surprised a lot of people, that his motive was so bizarre, that he was just against, I guess, the direction that the world was going in a more advanced society. Do you see that there's going to be some kind of bizarre motive in these bombings in Austin, Texas? I think that's what everybody's trying to figure out. What exactly was this person trying to prove?
Well, there very well could be some bizarre motives. One of the things that you can rest assured, none of the rest of us think like these people. They're in kind of a class of their own. One of the things we got out of Theodore Kaczynski was over 50,000 pages of handwritten notes and journals, and he accounted for just about every day of his life. And the kind of thoughts he had and the kind of things that made him gleeful, like killing people, was just beyond the pale. And so when it is all said and done, this will probably be, for all whatever his other motives are, another loner-type angry person. And even then, many of us will never understand how someone really reaches that kind of point where they could be committing such evil acts of violence.
Ed, the investigation, I'm sure you can talk about this, is just starting at this point. Police have to locate this suspect's home, where this person may have been making the bombs. Was it at a home? Was it at a hotel? Can you walk us through that process?
Sure, there's a lot of work that has to be done here. The first thing they're going to do is find where the suspect is from, locate any material in his home, locate any storage facilities that he may have. They're going to look for motor vehicles to find out if there are any other devices. All of these crime scenes right now are being cleared first by EOD personnel to make sure they're safe for the evidence technicians that are going to go in. But they'll also be looking through social media to find out what he's been posting, what he's been saying to people that he knows. There'll be interviews done by all of his neighbors, to all of his neighbors and associates. There's a lot of work yet to be done here, but Chief Manley has done an unbelievable job in wrapping this thing up quickly. He's to be credited in this, and even though they have a lot more work, the city of Austin will rest more comfortably today.
Absolutely, they will. This was the news everybody was waiting to hear. Yeah. Terry, over to you. Talk about these bombs. I can't help but be fascinated by the ability to make something like this that detonates when you want it to, that detonates when somebody opens the box, when somebody runs over the tripwire. I half suspected that this thing would come to an end. They'd just find this guy dead in his house after he blew himself up. Obviously, this was a skilled bomb maker. How tough is it to make these types of devices?
Well, it'll be interesting to find out more about this person, because everything you said is exactly right, Rob. I think that one of the things we have to keep in mind is that these people learn, they teach themselves many times, and they go out and they experiment. And so while we're looking for his places where he's lived or where he might have bombs right now, we're going to also be wanting to look for places where he might have gone out in the mountains and experimented with these bombs. There's foothills around San Antonio, and there's all kinds of places, obviously, in Texas where that could have happened. If you look back at all the other serial bombers we've ever dealt with, Eric Robert Rudolph was out experimenting with bombs in the middle of the Nantahala National Forest. Theodore Kaczynski had detailed notes of all of his, he called them experiments, of the bomb testing that he did in Montana in the middle of the mountains. And so that's going to tell us a lot, and it'll tell us a lot about how he went about learning all of what he learned and what kind of skill sets he had and what kind of skill sets he developed. The one more point I'll make is, again, going back to how different these people are, Kaczynski was making these bombs and then jumping on a Greyhound bus. So he's literally sitting next to somebody with a bomb in his arm, you know, a package. So again, these are not people who think like us, and thank God for that. But it's going to be very interesting, as Ed said, to see how all this develops, and as they get and collect so much more information about his motivations, to see exactly how this person fits in to some of the other people like the Zonaya brothers and the other serial bombers we've dealt with over the years.
Ed, I happened to be in Boston just a couple of days after the Boston Marathon bombing happened, and I remember from those days how eerily quiet the streets were. Nobody was going outside. Everybody was in their house. I mean, for days. Even trying to find a restaurant, trying to find somewhere to eat, it was impossible. What is your message to the people of Austin and the surrounding communities this morning? Because there is a sigh of relief, but at the same time, I would sit here and say I would have a hard time letting my guard down just yet. Is that fair?
I think it is. I think that, you know, when this guy placed the tripwire device, it wasn't a targeted package bomb. It was a general assault on the community. And so they still have to be cautious that, you know, there may be other devices around, and I'm sure that the police are searching everywhere that they can to make sure that the streets and sidewalks are safe. So it's important to have a measure of caution in the area. But today they can affirmatively believe that the bad guy is gone, and that this continued assault on their community is over, and they can be very thankful that the FBI does a tremendous job in working with the local police. ATF is really involved in this stuff and rebuilding the bombs and understanding how everything works and goes together. And I'll tell you, the people of Austin can be confident that they've got the best policing in the world all around them right now.
Just to follow up on that, Ed, I think I say that, and I think I ask that question because at this point, we don't know that this person acted alone. So how long does it take, and what's the process of figuring that out?
Well, that's true. I mean, there's always a possibility of a co-conspirator. Someone may have dropped these devices off. We certainly saw that in the McVeigh case. But I think, by and large, if they've got him and a device and he's killed himself, then there's a better than average chance that they've wrapped this thing up. You know, they were probably surveilling this guy before the incident happened, and he made a move if this happened in the car. So they know a lot more about this than we know right now. And as Terry knows, a lot of information is not released, but the police have it and are working diligently on it. So I think that the city can rest comfortably right now.
Yeah, just to give everybody an update, the ATF has confirmed yet again that this is the suspect in all of these bombings that have been happening in the Austin area over the last 3 weeks. I think 5 packages have exploded, 6 were found. You look at this whole thing, Terry, and you see how, you know, according to local news reports, it sounds like he may have gone into a FedEx store and shipped a bomb or a device that didn't explode, and that could have been the game changer. Then they get perhaps some kind of warrant. They do some kind of surveillance on the cell phone. They track him to this hotel. That's how it's sounding like this all may have come together, according to local reports. How impressed are you with how quickly police and federal agents got this thing taken care of? Because this could have drawn out for weeks.
It definitely could have. And, you know, we've been bombarded over the last months, actually for a long time, about people being so severely critical of the police. And obviously we all know the FBI has had its own problems. But what we're seeing now, and what we probably would have seen all last night, because all this came together after that FedEx thing, I'm pretty sure of this, and Ed may feel the same way, but I think that was a big quantum leap. And so they were working all night to get ready for what eventually would play out this morning. And that's really the norm, though, of what happens almost daily as the police and the FBI and the ATF and federal and state law enforcement and local agencies work together. That, if you look back at the history of terror even, the role of the police in terrorism cases in both preventing them and in being in the right place at the right time, and then using that thing that nobody really understands, but police officers and those of us in law enforcement understand, that police instinct and suspicion. It brings things together, and it stops terrible things from happening. And we have to keep remembering in all the issues we deal with today, nobody should want to do anything to get in the middle of that, because it works. And today is the way the police do their job every single day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I feel proud of it, and I'm going to make sure I want to second what Ed said earlier about the police chief down there in Austin. It's a tremendous moment for all of us who've been in this career and think so much of it and why we got into it in the first place.
A question for both of you, and Terry, I'll start with you. How do you prevent something like this? And from every incident, you learn things, right? What do you learn from something like this? Well,
you know, you can't say this enough. Preventing these acts is a team thing between law enforcement and the public. And the more we talk to each other, the more we trust each other, and the more we're working together and always trying to discuss these things and get things out in the open, the more we're going to be successful at stopping them cold before they ever happen. And if they do happen, as you found out in Boston Marathon bombing, trying to quickly bring it all together with the public's help. You see it every time, and every one of these cases has that aspect. Even if it has a quick ending like this, it always came from that kind of connection.
Ed?
I completely agree. The community is always central to these investigations. And it sounds trite, but that saying, see something, say something, is really the only way that we can prevent these things. There's millions of people, and a certain percentage gravitate towards these terrible acts. When this happens, the family usually has an indication. People who are close to the person have an indication that something's going wrong. Telling the officials and letting the authorities deal with it could prevent the kind of tragedy we've seen here, needless loss of life.
All right. Well, two experts that have hunted some of the most infamous bombers in this country. Who better to have on this morning? Thank you, gentlemen, so much. As we get some good news out of Austin, Texas, the suspected serial bomber that has plagued this city for the last 3 weeks has been killed. Gentlemen, thanks a lot.